Hey everybody, I was just thinking today about something. Sometimes in life we got different goals and they conflict, seemingly anyway. You know, you might have a goal of advancing your career, advancing your education, advancing your station in society, and you might also have social goals too. You know, you want to meet people, you want to find your significant other, or you want to make more friends and have more social experiences. And sometimes that can be at odds. I'll give you like just a personal example for me. So I got this, big idea that I want to flip houses, and I've bought my first house, and I am almost done flipping my first house. It's taken a very, very long time, way longer than it should have for many reasons, but nonetheless, in order to flip this house successfully and in, somewhat of a proper time limit, what I've had to do is I've had to work pretty much nonstop in order to, pay my normal bills, my living expenses, and then flip this house on top of that. So I work at a factory, right? And a factory, factory job is a really good job if you're trying to get as much money as possible in the short run, because if you're willing to work extra, you'll make more. If you're in there over 40 hours, you get paid time and a half. And then if you're there over 53 hours, you get paid double time. So you can have a job where you're making six figures, on a high school diploma, if you're willing to show up and work the weekends. And that makes a tremendous difference in how quickly you can save money and then reinvest money, whatever. So I've had to, unfortunately, kind of choose between my social life and my working life, because I really want to get this house done. I really want to get it done. It's drug on way too long. I want to get it flipped and complete. And yes, I have got construction loans to help me out, but there are certain stipulations on them. They don't give you all the money at once. They break it up. We'll give you this much to do drywall. We'll give you this much to do siding. And it's got to be done one step at a time. You get this done, you show them, and then they give you more money. So I've kind of had to fill in the gaps a little bit with working a lot of overtime, and that has made all the difference. I've put quite a bit of money into remodeling this house, and a ton of it out of my own pocket. So I've had to pinch pennies, and I've had to work a lot of overtime to make it possible. Working the weekend makes me about an extra $1,000-ish a week, or whatever, or every 2 weeks rather. Anyway, it makes a big difference. So I've struggled, because I don't hang out with people as much. I don't go on dates as much as I'd like to. I don't hang out with my friends as much as I'd like to. I have even kind of started to feel anxiety about being in areas with a lot of people. I used to never feel that way, but I think I have developed that just because of how much I've worked and how much I've kind of been, off the map, so to speak, where I'm away from everybody and not around people. So it's like that's a complicated thing. It's like, well, what do you do if you're in that situation where you have to pick between two things that are, really drawing at your attention? Can I do both at once? Can I have a social life, and can I be this big time hustler at whatever that happens to be at, whether it's starting your own business or at your job or whatever. Well, I think you need to really think and pray about that, on what it is that's important to you. I think the best way to think is to get away from everybody, like take a weekend or maybe just one day if that's all you have, and go somewhere. Go out in nature maybe, or you can even just be in your own house, in your own room. Cut the TV off, cut your cell phone off, and sit in silence. And if you do that, you will connect with God in a deeper way, and you will connect with your true thoughts in a deeper way. And a lot of people in history have done that, or whatever. They've gotten away from everybody, gotten away from the distractions, and then that certain revelations have opened up to them. Jesus did that before he started his ministry. He went in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights by himself, and he fasted. He didn't even eat during that time period, and he was reflecting on what he was going to do. But that's another rabbit hole. So anyway, you can take a day or two and just talk to yourself, or maybe have a notepad and write it down. What it is that you really want with your life. What's more important. What degree of success do I want? And you can hash that out there. If you want an extreme degree of business success or career success, I believe that you basically have to give up your social life almost entirely, for a time anyway. Not forever. But the fact of the matter is, I heard Jordan Peterson say one time, and I believe this. He said, if you work weekends for 2 years straight and your competition doesn't, then you'll be so far ahead that they will never catch up, because it yields disproportionate results working the weekends. That's just the way it works. So if you want career success, financial success, and that is what is just eating you up, then maybe you should do that. Maybe that should be your priority. Different people have different purposes. I believe God, ultimately our purpose is to serve God, but that looks different to different people. God puts different desires on people's hearts or whatever. And some people have various different needs. It is important to have friends and relationships too. And, you need to think of a way that perhaps you can I hate to use the word balance, but balance is the only word that comes to mind, to kind of balance the two. Maybe you can take one day off, maybe just Sundays, and socialize a little bit, and go out and meet people, have dates, whatever. And then all the other days of the week, work. Maybe that's what you need to do. So ultimately, if you really want to ponder this and come up with the answer, you need to pray about it, and also just get away from the noise. Just maybe for one whole day, get off your phone, get away from the TV, don't listen to music or anything, and just maybe sit with a journal your thoughts, or talk out loud, whatever, and you can sort the problem out and articulate what it is to yourself that is most important in your life. So, and then maybe the answer will reveal itself. Maybe you have to do it a couple times, but I guarantee you, if you pray about it and you do that, you connect with your deeper thoughts and your deeper mind, then the answer will show itself. So, but that's one of the difficulties of life, man. I mean, we have different goals and different needs and different desires, and our time is so finite. we got to sleep, for a part of the day too. I mean, it sucks when you're starting out, when you're new in this world, a new person, a young person. You're going to have to work 8 to 12 hours a day for your survival, just to survive, to have a means of transportation, to have a house, or have food, whatever, pay your bills, pay your insurance, whatever. And that only leaves you with a couple hours in the evening. And if you're, a healthy person, you got to use some of those evenings a week to exercise, to stay in shape, to improve your shape. And so that really doesn't leave you with much time per week to do other things. And it's like people are like 0 or 100. It's like you either, you're just a social animal, and like with your spare time, you just use that to socialize and hang out. And like, that's good in a way. But there's a downside to that also, because if you just do that, you can spin your wheels forever and then never do anything else. And then like a few years passes and it's like, oh, I'm still working the same job. I'm in the same place in society. I have not moved any closer to self-actualization at all. But then you can go on the other extreme where all you do in your spare time is work. Maybe you work more at your job to get ahead of your job, or you work on a business, whatever. And then, you feel empty because you don't have as much of a social life. So what's the answer? You have to think about that. You need to know what your own goals are. You need to know what your goals are. What do your goals look like? What level of success are you happy with? If you want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, I'm sorry. The fact of the matter is you're probably going to have to work all the time. It's just the way it is. You might not get much time to socialize. But maybe you could just do one day a week. But you got to think about that correct amount. So, like I said, just get away from the noise, get away from the distractions, get away from people for maybe a day or so, maybe a couple days, and really ponder the question. Pray, and the answer will make itself revealed to you. I believe that. Have a relationship with God, and have a relationship with yourself, and that will help solve your procrastination.